Today we crossed over the bridge from Astoria, Oregon, where we're camped, and we came on over here to Washington State to see the Cape Disappointment Lighthouse.
Yeah, so we're here at Cape Disappointment. Beautiful hike. We also saw Dead Man's Cove, which is really cool.
Here's what's coming up on this episode
of Roaming with Rosie.
Just to catch you up, in our last episode, we took you to the Astoria column where we climbed 125 feet up to throw wooden gliders off the top. We put ourselves behind bars at the Oregon Film Museum, which is the former jailhouse, and we showed you the former military installation, which you can visit at Fort Stevens State Park. It doesn't matter which order you watch these two episodes, but here's a link to the whole Pacific Coast playlist that you can use to plan your trip. Today, we're delving into maritime history full of shipwrecks and ocean rescues, a bargain antique trolley ride that's way more fun than it has any right to be, a fort where explorers Lewis and Clark literally spent the winter, and we're following that up with a quick trip over the Astoria Megler Bridge to Washington State, where we drove out to Cape Disappointment. Finally, we're showing you the other side of beautiful Fort Stevens State Park where we camped. Our cousins Greg and Marianne and their dog Sadie have been accompanying us up the Oregon coast. You'll be seeing them along with us in this video. So make yourself comfortable, settle in, and let's explore Astoria. All right, our first stop, the Columbia River Maritime Museum. And wow, it's literally sitting right on the Columbia River. So you've got this gorgeous water view while you're learning about maritime history. Now let's be honest, when someone says Maritime Museum, I'm thinking dusty old ship models, maybe a rusty anchor or two, but this place, it's amazing, and the stories of heroism at sea and the way that they're told is fascinating. We are all paid up and we are headed over to see the Columbia ship. We've got these boarding passes. So it's $15 for seniors, $18 for regular admission, and there's also a AAA discount. But anxious to go see this ship. So right out front, right on the water, they've got the actual lightship Columbia right here that you can walk through and explore. So that's where we decided to start. This floating lighthouse, literally that's what it is, served for decades, marking the entrance to the Columbia River. And now you can climb aboard and see what life was like for the crew who lived on this ship for months at a time.
All right, well, welcome aboard everybody. Welcome to the Lightship Columbia. Let me tell you a little bit about the Lightship and then I'll turn you loose, okay? All right, a lightship is a lighthouse that floats. And what happened was back in the late 1800s, they built two lighthouses across the creek in Washington, the North Head Light and the Cape Disappointment Light. The problem with those two lights was that when you were coming down from Seattle, you could only see the North Head Light. When you're coming up from San Francisco, you could only see the Cape Disappointment Light. You can't navigate on one light. They needed a third light off the mouth of the river. There wasn't a rock out there to put one on, so they stuck one on a boat, towed the boat out there with its crew, and anchored it, and that became the first lightship. That was in 1892. This was anchored 5 miles off the mouth of the river from 1951 to 1979. This is the fourth and last lightship that was out there. That big red buoy thing that you walk past on the way out here, that is called a large navigation buoy, and that is what replaced the lightship in 1959. And that did everything the lightship did without any people, which made the Coast Guard very happy. Now, if everybody turn around and look at the top of that forward mast, you're going to see a square box with a bunch of light bulbs, okay? Those light bulbs are locomotive headlight bulbs, and there's 24 of them, 6 to a side. And here's what they would do, is they would turn the lights on opposite side of the box, and then the box would rotate. So you're on a freighter, you're taking a bearing off my lightship, and you're looking at it, you're going to see blink, 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 as that box rotates.
Its purpose was to guide ships safely into the graveyard of the Pacific. But that nickname isn't just for dramatic effect. The Columbia River Bar is legitimately one of the most dangerous waterways in the world. Over 2,000 ships have met their doom trying to cross it, and this museum tells those stories in a very engaging way.
A little bit earlier, we could have had a tour, but that's okay, we have lots to see today. Imagine being in here and being tossed about on 30-foot waves. Crazy. Bunks, lockers, sleeps 10. I mean, they have some decent space here. More space than I've seen on some naval ships. Better than school.
I think this is the gray tank section.
It's the black tank.
The black tank section. Exactly. The mechanics here.
Showers. Hot water is limited. Navy showers only. We know all about those in RV life. Beautiful entrance to this museum.
The Coast Guard rescue stories are unbelievable. These are real-life heroes risking their life to save ships and crew. There's film of helicopter rescues in massive storms, ships breaking apart in giant waves, and these Coast Guard heroes just diving in to save lives.
So this whole room is shipwrecks. Between Girl Scouts and sailing, I should know how to tie these knots, but I did not really learn them like I was supposed to. Really important to be able to tie knots if you're a sailor, and I failed. This boat was sailed from 1914 all the way up to 1972.
The museum does an incredible job of connecting Astoria's past to its present. This isn't just history. The Columbia River is still a major shipping channel, and the Coast Guard is still out there every day keeping mariners safe. After all that maritime education, it's time for something a little more, shall we say, leisurely? Let's hop aboard the Astoria Riverfront Trolley. Sometimes the most touristy thing is actually the most fun thing, and this trolley absolutely delivered. This isn't just any trolley, it's a beautifully restored 1913 streetcar that runs along the Columbia River waterfront. And the best part, it's only $1 per boarding or $2 to hop on and off all day.
Well, welcome aboard Old 300, folks. We're going to get started here.
The route takes you about 4 miles along the waterfront, and the views are spectacular. You've got the Columbia River on one side and these gorgeous Victorian houses climbing up the hillside on the other, and the Astoria Megler Bridge stretching across the water like something out of a postcard. Our conductor, and yes, there is an actual conductor with a hat and everything, is giving us the full historical commentary.
Let's tell you a little bit about Old 300 first. She was built in 1913 in St. Louis, Missouri. She ran for about 25-30 years in San Antonio on their trolley system till the buses, those rascally things, pushed them out.
We're riding the Astoria trolley. It's just $1, and you get all the information about the riverfront and the city from the what would you call him? The conductor. The conductor. If you pay $2, you can get on and off at these various stops. So it's really a great way to get the whole history of the city here, as well as transportation around. So just park once for the day and ride the trolley around. And there is free parking for the trolley at the beginning. I don't know if there is along the way.
You know, the pilings and the wood structures were very susceptible to fire. There was a bunch of fires down here on the waterfront, destroyed lots of stuff.
When we saw how crowded it quickly became, we were happy to stay on for the full loop. It's a wonderfully old-fashioned experience. No screens, no rush, just the gentle rocking of the trolley, the sound of the wheels on the tracks, and some beautiful river scenery.
Help you turn this thing around, so don't do anything until I tell you to do it. Those folks on the riverside, raise your hand, because there you go. All right, now please stand up and stand into the aisle, please. Yeah, you got to get into the aisle. Turn around and face me. All right. Now the seats in front of you got a brass ring. Now you're going to use the brass ring. You're going to lift up gently. No, that's not the way to do it. You're going to lift it up gently and set it down gently. Shouldn't hear anything. Okay. Oh, I'm hearing stuff. Seat maintenance is one of our biggest bugaboos, actually. But it's not surprising. The metal parts are 111 years old, so they, metal fatigue. They get tired. Okay, folks on the land side, please stand up, do the same thing, turn around and face me, and very gently reach down and gently lift up and gently set the seat down, using only the ring. There you go. There you go.
So I wondered how they were going to turn this around when I didn't see a second set of tracks.
Now you can go
So all
back
we
home
do
and
is
say,
flip our
I
seats.
helped turn a 20-ton trolley around.
So the way we chose to do this was to pay the $1 and just ride the trolley back and forth and hear all the stories as opposed to get off and on. And it looks like that's a pretty good idea because we're completely full and a lot more people want to get on.
We appreciate it. Okay, once we've got everyone off,
Thank you.
we're going to turn this trolley around and again.
All right, history buffs, this next stop is for you. Fort Clatsop. This is where Lewis and Clark spent the winter of 1805 and 1806. Now, before we go in, let me set the scene. Imagine you've just crossed the entire continent by boat, horseback, and walking. You're tired, you're probably pretty grungy, and you're thankful to have made it. But now, winter is coming. Welcome to Lewis and Clark's situation when they built this fort.
We are at Fort Clatsop, or Fort Ketchup as I've been calling it, and we are going out and taking a look at the second rebuild of their original fort of Lewis and Clark.
What we've come to see here is a replica of their original fort, with small quarters built using the same techniques and materials that the Corps of Discovery would have used. And when I say small, I mean small. We're talking about 50 square feet per person. That's smaller than the bedroom of our motorhome. Fort Clatsop was the winter encampment for the Corps of Discovery from December 1805 to March 1806. After finding a location that offered plenty of game and close proximity to the ocean, Clark sketched a preliminary site plan and they began construction in early December. The fort was completed by January 1st, housed 32 men, 1 woman, a baby, and a dog. And here's what's even more amazing. They didn't just survive that winter, they thrived. They spent their time making salt, repairing equipment, documenting plants and animals, and creating detailed maps. Lewis and Clark were basically the ultimate travel bloggers, except instead of posting on Instagram, they were writing detailed journals that would help map the American West.
So we're at Fort Clatsop, which was the winter installation for Lewis and Clark on their expedition. This is when they hit the final point at the west. So everything around here that we've come to see whilst camping at Fort Stevens is really mostly about Lewis and Clark. I'm getting a refresher on my 8th and 9th grade history, but we are relearning all of it here. It's really well set up, and they've rebuilt this fort for the second time. It burned, I think, in the early 2000s, so they've rebuilt it again. Interesting, it's the same style of fort that we saw up near, just outside Custer State Park in the town of Custer.
The Visitor Center has some fantastic exhibits, including replicas of items from the expedition and interactive displays that let you experience what it might have been like to make decisions on the trail. Would you turn back in a snowstorm? How do you navigate the stars? Trust me, it makes you appreciate GPS a whole lot more. The fort itself is just part of the experience. There's beautiful trails that wind through old-growth forest, the same kind of forest that Lewis and Clark would have seen. It's this incredible mix of massive Sitka spruces, western hemlocks, and Douglas firs. Some of these trees were already giants when the expedition was here.
Look at this tree. It's a Sitka. That's what I thought. I love these. I love the way they spread out like a hoop skirt at the bottom. They're really as beautiful as the redwoods.
So we closed the place down. We saw the last film of the day. We saw the fort. And now it's raining here at Fort Clatsop. Taking the flag down.
Speaking of Lewis and Clark's incredible journey, we're going to take a quick drive across the bridge to Washington State to visit Cape Disappointment because, trust me, despite the name, this place was anything but disappointing. All right, we're going to cross state lines now, just a quick drive across the impressive Astoria Megler Bridge, which, by the way, is over 4 miles long and absolutely stunning. Let's talk about the name for a second, Cape Disappointment. Who named this place and why? Actually, it was named by English fur trader John Mears in 1788 when he couldn't find the Columbia River. Well, his loss was our gain because this place is absolutely beautiful.
Today we've headed over from Astoria, Oregon to Washington. We crossed the bridge and we are at Cape Disappointment to see the lighthouse. It's a half-mile, pretty much uphill trail to get out there. And the interpretive center here, the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center, is a different direction. So you're gonna have a bit of walking here. Okay, so now we're going downhill. We just climbed up the hill so we can go down the hill. Again, definitely not accessible for wheeled transportation of any kind. They are calling it a difficult trail, so.
As we climbed in elevation, we started to hear the ocean getting louder. The trail winds through this beautiful coastal forest with massive Sitka spruces and shore pines.
Look at this tree. Look at the root system. How cool. I guess it's one of those Sitkas. The Sitka spruce. It's very grand. It has a very happy home here. Look at that.
Dead Man's Cove is something you will see from this trail, and it's beautiful, and there is a trail that goes down to it. But if you go down there, you've got to come back up. We took a quick breather and took in the views and reminded ourselves this is why we do it, right?
I'll tell you what, this is Dead Man's Point. It's not easy to get up to this trail.
Okay, we just got sirens from the Coast Guard thing. Like, is that a tsunami warning? What are they saying?
When you come up to this point, it's definitely worth it going and looking at the view. Dead Man's Point.
There is Dead Man's Cove Trail. That looks a little bit beastly, but there is people that took that trail and are down there. And Lighthouse to the right. Difficult.
So from the Coast Guard station up to the lighthouse is paved so that they can drive up here, because this is still a working lighthouse, I believe. But the rest of this trail is dealing with roots and steep, narrow areas on it. And now we're gonna have to go down it too.
The trail got steeper as we got closer to the lighthouse, but just when you think you've made a huge mistake, you see the lighthouse. Finally, the Cape Disappointment Lighthouse, and it was not a disappointment. It was built in 1856, so it's actually the oldest lighthouse in the Pacific Northwest, and it sits right at the mouth of the Columbia River. This is the spot where Lewis and Clark finally reached their goal. The lighthouse itself is in need of a fresh coat of paint, but honestly, it's the location that steals the show. This lighthouse has been guiding ships into the Columbia River for over 160 years. Standing here, you really get a sense of how treacherous these waters can be. We just hiked up the half-mile each way, difficult trail, uphill almost the whole way, extremely uphill in some parts, and not paved at all in other parts. If you wanted to just go to the interpretive center, especially if you have an 88 license plate, you can actually park there, and you can see it pretty good, because here's the lighthouse right here, and it's just looking over at the interpretive center right there. So you don't have to come up here to get a pretty good view of the lighthouse. So the Coast Guard uses this to this day. They're actively keeping an eye out for ships in distress. Behind me is the Cape Disappointment Lighthouse. It was built in 1856. It is used as a Coast Guard viewpoint 24/7, and the Coast Guard is there to radio in weather conditions, wave conditions, if there's distress on a ship out there. And so there's two guys manning it, and from what we could see, they're pretty intensely manning it, checking everywhere, radioing back down to the main Coast Guard station there if they're needed to go out to help somebody. We saw a ship that looked like it was kind of caught in a swirling water, and we saw both the guys inside there radioing, and so I don't know if they sent someone out. The ship did get out of it. Looks like they're just fishing boats out there, but this does not look like a fun place to hang out and fish. Very much rough water. Instead of hiking all the way back down, we took the trail over to the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center. It's about a half-mile walk. Battery Harvey Allen, located near the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center, was part of Fort Canby. This battery was built in 1905, and in 1941 it was operational again during World War II. Nowadays, this battery is part of Cape Disappointment State Park.
Each one there and there.
Wow. So they can keep warm. Original bench. Wow. Let's talk about the visitor center. This is where things get a little confusing, so let me break it down for you. There's a visitor center here that has some fantastic free exhibits, but it also houses the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center, which costs about $5 to enter. We're going to focus on the free stuff because honestly, we're getting pretty hungry after all that hiking. The free area focuses on lifeboat rescues and Coast Guard displays, and like at the Maritime Museum and the lifeboat station in Port Orford, these stories are incredible. We're talking about some of the most dramatic rescues in maritime history right here at the mouth of the Columbia River. What's really cool is how these exhibits connect to everything else we've seen on this episode and last week's episode. The Maritime Museum in Astoria, the stories of Lewis and Clark, and the shipwreck at Fort Stevens. It's all part of this larger story of humans trying to navigate and survive along this incredible but challenging coastline. And now for our grand finale, Fort Stevens State Park. We showed you a main attraction of it last week, its military installation, the only place on the continental U.S. fired upon by enemy warship. This place is like getting several attractions for the price of one. You've got the military fort and the shipwreck of the Peter Iredale that we showed you on our last episode. On top of that, you've got almost 500 beautiful campsites, Coffinberry Lake, and numerous trails for biking and hiking. Let's start with the camping, because honestly, this is one of the best public campgrounds in Oregon. The campsites are spacious, well-maintained, and here's the best part, only $37 a night with hookups. Fort Stevens has a lot of trails. They have biking trails. They even rent bikes here. So you can walk, you can ride, you can jog, whatever, on all of the trails here. And the trails go from the campground over to the lake. There's trails that go even deeper through the park, and we're going to kind of check them out. We don't have time to do trails today. It's been pouring all morning, and it's going to start raining again probably in an hour or so. We want to see all the other things that are in the park. Coffinberry Lake is one of those hidden gems that locals try to keep secret. It's this gorgeous freshwater lake that's perfect for swimming, kayaking, or just lounging on the beach. So today we're taking some time to explore our campground, which is in Fort Stevens State Park here in Oregon. And this is Caffinberry Lake. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. During the summer, they do ranger-guided kayaking and I think canoe trips, but you also can rent kayaks here too as well. If you're only here for the day, then you need to pay a $5 parking fee or buy a annual pass, which is what we did. So of course we're here in the beginning of October, so the season's pretty much over. So there you have it, 5 more incredible reasons to visit Astoria, Oregon. From maritime history that'll give you a new appreciation for life on the sea, to a trolley ride that's pure nostalgic fun, to standing where Lewis and Clark spent a very long winter.
Hey roamers, we hope you enjoyed this episode and really appreciate it if you share it with your friends and family. And if you're not yet a subscriber, make sure and hit that subscribe button.
And ring that bell because that way you'll be notified each time we upload a new video.
And make sure to leave a comment, that way you could be part of the conversation.
Until next time.
We'll see ya.
ya.
Bye.